Welcome to the Cass Health Podcast, the show where we hope to connect our community with healthcare information that's relatable, understandable, and useful to your life, and where you get to know better the neighbors providing your care here. I'm your host, Ann McCurdy, and in today's episode, we'll be talking about fiber with family medicine physician, Dr. Jeals Brines. Before we get started, 2 quick disclaimers. First, the comments in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of Cass Health. Second, the information in this podcast is not intended to be construed as personal medical advice. Always consult your primary care provider with questions and concerns regarding your health. Dr. Brines, thanks for coming back to the podcast. For our listeners, we've already covered some of our get to know you questions with Dr. Brines back in season 3, episode 6. It's a great episode, just 10 minutes. So you can go back and listen to that one if you want to learn more about Dr. Brines. So today we get to just jump right into the topic of fiber. So thanks for coming back on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a favorite topic of mine. So I was excited to be invited back.
So first question then. Why fiber? What is it about it that you just knew that's what you wanted to talk to us about?
I'll be so honest with you. I jumped on the fiber bandwagon about a year ago. I read this article and it kind of just changed my whole approach to diet and the things we were putting in our bodies. I really jumped on the bandwagon, and for good reason too, which we'll dive into later. It was kind of funny though too, because I went home and I told my husband, I said, oh my gosh, we have got to change some things. And he dove right in, which is what I love about him. But now he kind of gives me a little bit of grief, though, because he is probably better at getting dietary fiber in than I am, even though it's a passion of mine. And so I'm sure he'll listen to this podcast and say, well, I got 6 more grams than you today, so I don't know.
So if it's a competition in your household.
It's a one-sided competition. He is participating. I am just trying to do better.
Yes, and that's all we can ask, right?
Yeah, no, it's all in good fun though, and I love that he's embraced it, and he embraces a lot of my ideas, and so it's nice. It's nice.
Well, excellent. Good to have a supportive husband.
Absolutely.
So we'll start with just the very basics here. Mm-hmm. What is fiber?
Fiber is a nutrient that is necessary for our body in several different ways, especially in terms of our gut health and a lot of regulatory processes in our body. When we think about fiber, I think we think about 2 categories. There's soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. Soluble fiber, the way that it's processed in our gut is it hits your gut and it combines with some things to form kind of like a gel-like substance. I don't know if anybody has ever gotten some chia seeds wet or something and it kind of turns into like that jelly thing. I don't know. We all went on a chia pet craze, I feel like, in the early 2000s. And so maybe we're reflecting back to that. But anyway, and then that gel-like substance really helps to slow down your digestive process, slow gastric emptying, and decreases how your body absorbs things like carbohydrates, fats, and sugars. And through those processes can help promote a lot of really good health benefits like weight loss, blood sugar regulation, cholesterol control, all of that. So that's soluble fiber. And then when we focus into insoluble fiber I think of really as like your bulk forming agents. And so they're helping the efficiency of things moving through your gut. And so those are really promoting like colon health and that type of stuff.
So soluble and insoluble. Mm-hmm. So with these differences in fiber, are all fibers created equally?
That's a good question. I would say no, that not all fibers are created equally. By and far, dietary fiber is going to be best. And that's things that, like I said, we're just getting from natural products, your vegetables, your seeds, your nuts, those types of things. Now, there are a lot of things at the pharmacy and online in terms of supplements. Supplements can be a good source of boosting you if you're not quite meeting that dietary goal, but they should not replace your dietary foods, mostly because we don't know a ton about them and they're not well regulated. So when we talk about supplements, the FDA does not regulate supplements like they do our medications. So when you're getting, 10 milligrams of your blood pressure medicine, we know that there are 10 milligrams in there because it's very well regulated. But if you pick up a supplement at the store that bouts like, oh, you're going to get 5 grams of fiber in this, plus minus, who knows,
right?
Mystery zone, very gray. Now, that being said, I'm sure you are getting some fiber and everything in there, but the exact amount is not well known and it's not processed quite the same same as dietary fiber would be in your diet. And so definitely a good idea if you are really trying to up your goals and you want to just close a gap with that. But by and far, the best way to do it is through your diet.
Excellent. What about if I am looking to have some sort of supplement? Okay, I'm doing what I can, but I'm finding it hard to meet my daily recommendations. Are there any supplements that you talk to patients about?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that one of my favorite supplements is like a psyllium containing supplement, and that is something that we usually all see at the store, which is an example of like Metamucil is a psyllium supplement. Psyllium forms like that gel-like substance in our stomach, which, like I said, can slow gastric emptying, help with processing, all of that. And so psyllium through Metamucil is a good way to help boost you to maybe some of your goals if you're not quite there yet. Other good supplements are supplements that have beta-glucan fiber in it, which are going to work in a similar way as the psyllium. Gummy-like substances can be beneficial, but they're not going to have as many benefits in terms of regulating some of those nutrients through your gut and the good absorption of your carbohydrates and your healthy fats. And so I would lean less towards those. Granted, if you're on this fiber journey and you're focusing on fiber at all, then I think that you've already taken good steps forward. And so definitely ask your provider, do some research into what supplements are best. But like I said, anybody who's really selling you something, just think twice. But certainly if you want to boost that goal and look at some supplements, I think that's okay.
So how much fiber do we need in a day? So if we're focusing on eating fiber as our main source to get it, how much do I need to eat?
Yeah. So for women who are under 50, general rule of thumb is around 28 grams of fiber per day. The older that you get past 50, when you've been blessed with more birthdays, is a little bit lower than that and closer to 22 grams per day. And then for men who are under 50, closer to 34 grams per day. And then over 50 for men would be closer to 28 grams per day. The average American right now through our diet, which is pretty processed, which is not a surprise, but that's closer to like 10 to 15 grams.
Oh, so we're like getting maybe half of what we need.
Yeah, no, it's very drastic. And that's kind of when we start talking into a lot of the chronic health conditions that we're seeing in our country and even in the Midwest. So much of it, can be improved and helped with our diet. And especially too, I know a hot topic that a lot of people are seeing in the news and even just seeing in their day-to-day lives with their loved ones are like cancer risks and stuff too, colorectal wise.
We're trying to get, that increase our fiber, the 28 to 34 grams of fiber a day. What are some of your go-to recommendations for patients? Are there certain foods or other things that you recommend?
Some of the ones that I love for soluble fiber are bananas, apples, oats like oatmeal, peas, beans like black beans, pinto beans, Brussels sprouts, avocados. And so this is your free pass to go get some guacamole.
I love it. I already had half of an avocado today, so I'm doing pretty good already.
Oh, I love it, Ann.
Yeah.
And then insoluble fiber are things like seeds, nuts, almonds, walnuts, whole wheat flour, so your whole wheat grains through your breads. Sourdough is very good as well. Potatoes, pears, some of your leafy vegetables like kale, that kind of thing.
So we need again, since there's the soluble and insoluble, we need a mix of both types.
Absolutely.
So that we're really getting the benefits.
Yep, they're working in different ways. And so that balance is very important. You shouldn't go all in on one or the other. Otherwise, your gut's going to be missing some of that. And that'll kind of lead us a little bit into the importance of our gut microbiome as well.
I was just going to say, hey, so gut health is a trendy topic, but what does that mean? And, we hear, your gut microbiome. Can you explain that to us? Like, what does that really mean?
Absolutely. So in your gut, we talk about like good bacteria and bad bacteria, and we all have bacteria living in our gut that's essential for us to process things. And so these are like tiny organisms, bacteria, even viruses, and like fungus, which is kind of, I know, crazy to think about. There is.
Interesting. Okay.
And these organisms are really important because they help us break down food. They form some of our vitamins and synthesize some of the vitamins that we need. And they produce substances that can help keep our gut healthy. And so they play a really big role in protecting us from harmful germs. They boost our immune system and they help us process things. Research has kind of shown too recently that gut microbiome can even really affect your mood. And people talk about your serotonin, your happy chemicals too, having an origin too in your gut. And so I think it's really important for us to focus on nutrition that is going to support that healthy gut microbiome for a variety of reasons, whether it's gut health, whether it's mood, whether it's preventative medicine, you name it.
It's fascinating. I try to read a lot of health news, and still an area where we're seeing lots of new studies and lots of more information. All of it's still pointing to, again, the benefits of eating fiber.
Absolutely. And when we think too on our gut microbiome and our American diet, which is very processed, the more processed something is, the less fiber it's going to have, and other things like your good proteins and good healthy fats, that type of stuff. So they all kind of do go hand in hand. If you're getting a healthy fiber in your gut, you're probably also getting more protein in your gut through a lot of those fiber-rich foods. And so really to talk about one without the other is kind of hard, but still
absolutely
important to highlight the benefits of one. One of my favorite fun facts is that if you are looking at an ingredient list, if that ingredient list is longer than 3 lines, then you're safe to say, oh, this is pretty processed and maybe I should go for something else. Because it's hard to be able to look at an ingredient list and there's a lot of names that even like I struggle with, or I'm like, what is that? I've never even heard of that. I thought that this was just, a normal food I was picking up. So if it's longer than 3 lines, then that's your key to know, oh, this is probably pretty processed. Maybe I'll look for a different one instead of trying to remember what each one of those weird chemical names are, or something like that.
Yeah, because they might be fine. But again, like that 3 lines, what a simple way to say, and a trigger for your brain to say, wow, this is maybe more processed than what my goals are right now.
Absolutely.
So just a good cue to say, like, maybe I'll reconsider on this one right now.
Certainly.
I love that tip. So fiber is obviously important for having healthy bowel movements, but does fiber have an impact on our health beyond just a healthy microbiome and having healthy bowel movements?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the biggest benefits too is cancer reduction, especially in the state of Iowa. We actually have had kind of some spikes in cancer, very unfortunately. And colon cancer is a very big topic. The USPSTF, which regulates kind of some of our guidelines on screening for these things, actually changed their recommendations from 50 for your colon cancer screening to 45. And there's good reason for that. And it's that we're finding colon cancer in younger people in more severe stages. And so if there's a way for us to reduce that risk, as simple as going to the grocery store, then I think that that's very important. When we talk about the risk with colon cancer, fiber really, like we said, promotes those regular bowel movements. But promoting regular bowel movements like that actually reduces the time that some of these harmful substances in our gut are in contact with our gut. So just reducing that amount of time is beneficial. So those toxins and potential carcinogens are not in contact with the lining of our gut as long. And additionally, certain types of fiber are fermented by gut bacteria, which produces a substance called butyrate. And butyrate is known to nourish the cells of the colon. It reduces inflammation and inhibits the growth of cancerous cells. So this butyrate substance that comes as a byproduct of our gut microbiome as it ferments our fiber is really cancer protective.
So fiber is obviously really important for colon cancer and the health of our colon. What about our cardiovascular health? Does it have a role to play there?
100% it does.
This is fascinating.
It does.
Tell us more.
Okay, so we already talked about how soluble fiber can reduce the absorption of bad fats and bad sugars and cholesterol in our gut. And by doing that, it helps support our blood vessels, so you don't get that plaque or buildup from cholesterol in your blood vessels as much. When you do have plaque and cholesterol building up in your blood vessels over time, it makes those blood vessels like kind of brittle and not as pliable, which worsens blood pressure and in turn worsens heart conditions and those types of things. And so to talk about blood pressure outside of cholesterol and in terms of fiber, they're brothers. They go hand in hand. Additionally, fiber-rich foods have a lot of potassium and magnesium in them, which are also very beneficial for your cardiovascular health. And consuming more fiber can stabilize your blood sugar levels and reduce inflammation. And inflammation from high blood sugar levels also worsens things like blood pressure and the health of your blood vessels overall. So that really kind of swings us into blood sugar regulation.
Yeah, because there is this relationship between fiber and glucose. So can you talk to us about what's the relationship between fiber and glucose?
Yep, it happens in a couple of different ways. So we already talked about how soluble fiber will slow down the absorption of certain sugars in your gut. And that helps stabilize your blood sugar levels. And especially when you have really high spikes in your blood sugar after you eat certain foods, it really helps limit that. And so you're not hitting these peaks in your valleys. You're staying much more steady state, which is important overall for inflammation reduction.
And can I just add in, and this is important for people, for everyone, not just diabetics.
Absolutely, exactly.
Right?
When we think about diabetes, there's a couple different ways that we test for it. One of the common ones that we test for is, and people know about, is your A1C, which is your 3-month average of your blood sugar. That's not really taking into account these peaks and valleys. Somebody could have a normal A1C, but really be peaking a lot and then going low, but we would never know from that 3-month average. Granted, there are other ways to test for those things, and doctors and providers are very aware of that, but it's not the end-all be-all. And so even just preventing these spikes in someone who does not have diabetes is going to be important for them in reducing inflammation. An unsolicited fun fact from Dr. Brines is that for an FDA to approve a diabetic medication, so a pill or any sort of prescription to treat diabetes, at minimum it has to reduce A1C levels by 0.3%. Now, that's not saying all prescriptions only do that, but to get past their level of standards,
that's the minimum.
Yep, that's the minimum.
It's got to do that by at least 0.3%. Okay?
Yep. Just hitting your dietary fiber goals has shown in studies to reduce your A1C by close to 0.6%. So it can even be better than some medications. And that's not to go say, stop taking your medications, because they're very important, and a lot of them have other health benefits as well. Disclaimer. But important, yes.
Yeah.
Important to know that if you're pre-diabetic or you're really working on lifestyle changes, that truly some of this is just as good as some medications out there. And I know a lot of people, a lot of their healthcare goals, especially when I'm talking to people about what their values are, it's to not have to be on as many medications. And it can be very overwhelming to think about going into the doctor and that we're going to throw a bunch of pills at you. And that is a very overwhelming thing. And so I hear a lot from people that their healthcare goals would be to be on the smallest amount of medications as possible, but to still maintain their healthy lifestyle and function at a level that they want to. And so being able to hit your dietary fiber goals is maybe really a great way to do that for some people.
And improve your health in a lot of different ways.
Absolutely. 3 birds, 1 stone, 4 birds, 1 stone.
I love it.
Lots of birds.
Yeah. So putting 2 and 2 together here, it sounds like fiber can help with weight loss.
Absolutely. Soluble fiber is nature's Ozempic, and that's a great way to think about it.
Wow. And it's right there at the grocery store for any of us to go
Absolutely.
get. Wow. Okay. Mm-hmm. So soluble fiber, nature's Ozempic, Dr. Brines' hot take.
I love that. Yeah. So at the very beginning, when we talked about what soluble fiber is, right, we said that it slows down digestion. It decreases gastric emptying, meaning your food is sitting in your stomach longer, so you feel fuller faster, which leads to reduced calorie intake, reduced amount of food you're intaking, which is also how Ozempic works. And its brothers and cousins, such as Trulicity, Mounjaro, Wegovy, all of those things. And so you're reducing all of those things, but then also the way it's helping your body process those sugars, because Ozempic works obviously in several different ways. This is very similar to that. So yeah, nature's Ozempic.
Wow. Okay. I think there's so many people who can benefit from knowing, maybe they aren't at the point to try Ozempic, but we can all increase our dietary fiber a little bit.
Absolutely.
I heard recently, because I love reading healthcare news and I love the topic of fiber as well, I read something recently about people who eat fiber-rich diets can have a longer lifespan. True?
Yes.
How does fiber play into longevity?
So it plays into longevity in a lot of the ways we've already talked about. Your cardiovascular health, your gut health, reducing cancer rates, reducing inflammation, all of those types of things. I think some interesting facts, and I don't know how familiar everybody is with these blue zones, but there have been some data and studies out there about areas in the world where people have really long lifespans, or several community members or high community member rates of centennials, people hitting 100 plus. Now, a lot of that too can be played in by genetics, but other things that they look at in these quote unquote blue zones, which are places like Italy, Greece, Japan, even a certain place in California, is that their diet is very fiber rich. It's very natural, not a lot of processed things. And so when we think about adding in those things and reducing our processed foods, increasing our fiber, which we know is going to then in turn increase and improve our cardiovascular health and reduce our risk for cancers, then of course it plays into the fact that you could have a longer lifespan.
It makes sense that all these things, again, they're all connected. And so by increasing our fiber, we're improving all of these things at the same time.
Absolutely.
One thing we see on social media, cleanses, and that's kind of a trendy thing. And people think like, oh, I'm going to do this cleanse and I'm going to feel so much better. Or they're promoted as, oh, I'm going to do a cleanse and I'm going to lose so much weight, right? Can you talk to us about cleanses and what you tell your patients about them?
Yeah, I think cleanses are very dangerous. And I like to think that I keep an open mind on different approaches to things. And as long as they're not causing harm, then I think it's A-okay to explore. But I do think that there can be a lot of dangers around cleanses. And I also think that anybody who starts promoting something to sell you and make a profit on, that's always something that kind of flags to me like, ooh, is this a money grab? Is this a scam? Is this just something along those lines? And so I would caution people on cleanses. Definitely ask your healthcare providers, do your research. Cleanses can be harmful in a couple of different ways. They can cause nutrient deficiencies. So depending on how long these cleanses are, you're really not getting in the nutrients that you need, which can cause a lot of issues with electrolyte imbalances, dehydration, muscle wasting, that type of stuff. It can also then harm that gut microbiome that we talked about. So we talked about how it's important to, have diversity in the things that you're eating to promote that healthy gut microbiome for all of the benefits that it can do. But if you're doing this cleanse, you can kind of wipe some of that out. And then that gets rid of what the good bacteria are doing, but also then makes space for bad bacteria to work its way in. And once you kind of get in that vicious cycle, it can truly be a vicious cycle to then get out of. And so I certainly caution people in that regard. Cleanses can also cause pretty drastic spikes in sugar levels. And so you really hit those peaks and valleys with them, both by going high directly after you drink something through a cleanse, and then also dropping low afterwards. A lot of them are pretty juice oriented, and those juices are really triggering for blood sugar spikes.
That's fascinating. I hadn't thought about the fact that you are, again, clearing out that microbiome. So you are making room for those negative things to flourish.
Absolutely. And I think that there can be a lot of inflammatory verbiage and words around cleanses, with words that really hit home with people like, oh, I want to detox, I want to cleanse. And those are words that to us sound good. But I would also encourage people to think about what their body is already capable of. You have your liver, you have the lining of your gut, you have your kidneys, and those are all things that are naturally detoxing and designed to do so. And so let those things do their job.
Yes, and have a diet that is supportive to make sure those things are already working at optimum levels.
Absolutely. When we talk about these cleanses too, they can also take a toll on your mental health. Whether you're in this cycle of cleanses or you've only done one, or even you're considering doing one, the restrictive nature that a lot of them pose can be negatively impactful on your mental health. It can trigger some disordered eating as well. And so I do want people to caution that, especially if they have a history or any concerns in that regards, is that it can promote disordered eating.
That's good advice. That's good to be aware of. What are some few easy to remember tips that we can tell patients, here's some good ways to increase your fiber intake?
Yeah, absolutely. I think fiber is a journey, and it's a journey that I'm on as well. Maybe my husband's a couple miles down the road on that journey than I am.
Oh, you're catching up. You're catching up, right?
I'm hot on his heels. No. Fiber is a journey. And so I would say that I think in our culture and in our lifestyle, we often think of, what can I eliminate from my diet? What do I need to stop eating? All these things. And I would encourage people to think of fiber as, what can I add to what I'm already eating? And so maybe, if you're having tacos and you normally just kind of do taco meat, some cheese, and your tortillas, maybe you add in some beans to that, or you add in some veggies to that taco, that type of thing. And that also, it's a journey in that, don't listen to this podcast and go out and and only start eating fiber, or you will hate me because you're going to have a little bit of GI disturbance, perhaps maybe some bloating, some increased gas. Things are going to be a little rough at the beginning. So take it slow. Start by identifying a few areas. Maybe your goal is to add a little bit more fiber at breakfast, so you add some oatmeal, that type of thing. And then once you kind of get established with that, maybe you start looking at what you can add at lunch, that type of thing. So don't go hard and fast or you'll curse my name through the streets, but yes.
So if you take note of your diet and you say, okay, I need to start increasing slowly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You don't add 15 grams of fiber all in a day.
Nope.
Do a couple of grams here and there. And then again, over a course of a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Work up to that recommended daily.
Absolutely. I mean, I think we've all heard the ditty, beans, the more you eat. Or no, beans, the magical fruit, the more you eat.
Yep.
So very true, very true. But yes.
So take it slow. Mm-hmm. Okay. What about some of those fiber-rich foods?
Yeah.
We talked about a few, like the examples of the soluble and insoluble. But what are some of those other things that maybe we could think about incorporating into our diets?
Yeah. Things like legumes. So lentils, chickpeas, beans, peas are all excellent sources of both fiber and protein. And then whole grains, brown rice, barley, oats, even sourdough, whole grain, multigrain breads, that type of thing. And then a lot of vegetables, so your green leafy vegetables, kale, broccoli, cauliflower, all of those things. And then a lot of fruits and stuff as well. We talked about, bananas, apples, pears, and then nuts and seeds too, peanuts, almonds, walnuts, those types of things, chia seeds.
Excellent. You know what I'm noticing too? I eat a gluten-free diet, and there's still plenty of things here I can eat.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and I have kids with food allergies. Still plenty of things here. So that's one nice thing about when you're looking at increasing your fiber. There's a lot of options here. So if you do have some dietary restrictions, you're not stuck. There's so many different ways that you can be increasing your fiber without, I'm not going to be eating whole wheat flour. Unfortunately, I love whole wheat breads and things like that, but I do eat lentils and chickpeas and these other things. And so again, this is something everyone can do.
Okay. Absolutely. As you do start to increase that fiber journey, please increase your water intake. Definitely 6 to 8 glasses. When we talk about that kind of bulk forming with insoluble fiber and helping promote that, you definitely need water as a part of that, or you might get backed up the wrong way. And like I said, I don't need anybody cursing my name. So definitely increase your water intake to really help promote all of the good flow through the gut with that fiber.
Excellent. Okay, so increase our fiber, increase our water, and reap the benefits not only for healthy bowel movements, but everything, your whole body. Yeah. There's so many benefits.
For sure.
So, Dr. Brines, thank you so much for coming on, and we'd love to have you back again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. It's always a hoot to hang out with you guys.
Oh, thank you.